The meeting of the Laurel Highlands School Board to order. Please stand for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mrs. Field.
Mrs. Forbes. Present. Mr. Price.
Present.
Mrs. DeAndrea. Here. Mrs. Glad. Here. Mr. Landman.
Here.
Santor. Present. Mr. Suffolk.
Present.
And I'm present. 8 board members are present.
One absent. I'd like to have a motion to adopt the agenda with the removal of AE1, AE2, AE3, Exhibits N, and Exhibits O. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. At this time, if there's any, I'd like to recognize the visitors and guests. If anybody wants to speak on the agenda, we'll do that at the end of the meeting. Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of April 20th, 2017. Do you have a motion?
Second.
Question on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the attendance record of committee meetings and work sessions. The Finance, Budget, Taxation Committee meeting on May 10th, 2017. Curriculum Committee meeting of May 17th, 2017. Work session of May 17th, 2017.
So moved.
Question on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. This meeting will be televised this coming Sunday, May 21st at 6 p.m. and again on Monday, May 22nd at 6 p.m. on Atlantic Broadband, Channel 17. You can also watch the school board meeting on YouTube. Just go to South Union Township Television. You can also check the Laurel Highlands School District website for other televised times. Dr. Wallace, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Suffolk. Kindergarten registration was held during the weeks of May 2nd through 5th, and our numbers are as follows for kindergarten registration. Clark Elementary had 41 students registered, Hatfield 52, Hutchinson 41, and Marshall 49. And all of you that are out there, if you have or you know of families that have not registered their kindergarten student, please make sure to tell them to come into the schools and get them registered. It helps us with planning, and the sooner we have all kindergartners registered, the easier it is for us to assign classrooms and get ready for the new school year. A couple of things I'd like, or a few students I'd like to recognize tonight. First, this young man wrestled for Laurel Highlands this year. He was first in the Whippeal. He was a champion there, and he went on to the finals and lost in double overtime in the PIAA finals, which, if any of you know, even to go to a state championship level competition is a feat in itself. And I would like to congratulate Mr. Ian Edenfield today. We have a Wheaties box with his picture on it. We're very proud of Ian. I know his family is also. Great job. Great job. The next thing I would like to do is recognize 3 students today. And I'm assuming they're here. And these are our student representatives that help the board and help myself throughout the school year. They meet with me every month prior to the board meeting, and they keep me up to date on the things that students are concerned about. They are my conduit. They're the student voice for what's happening in the building. And through the years, a lot of the initiatives that these student representatives have brought to my attention, we have changed in the district, and we have made the district better for students with their help. And I can't tell you how much of a help they are, but they come to speak freely with me. They tell me exactly where the problems are. They tell me what we're doing well, but they also tell me what we're not doing so well. And I respect their honesty and I respect their candor. And they have been very instrumental to the board in moving the district forward. So at this time, I would like to recognize Emily Rahm, Hunter Scott, and Jenna Wingrove as our board representatives. If you would please step forward. I'd like to Emily, you're just in time.
Congratulations, sweetie.
Is Hunter Scott here? Okay. And just to read what we put on the plaque, in appreciation to Emily Rahm, Hunter Scott, and Jenna Wingrove for serving as a student advisor at Laurel Highlands School District Board of Education 2016-17. Great work, ladies, and Hunter Scott. And please give them another round of applause. Next on my agenda, I would also like to congratulate some of the spring sports athletes that went on to compete at various levels and earn various honors. The Centennial Scholar athletes of Aaliyah Howe, 3.92 in track, and Hudson Novak in baseball with 3.47 GPAs. That's great to be a student athlete and be able to accomplish those numbers in the classroom also. That is a true student athlete. Congratulations to those students. Our co-ed track qualifiers are participating actually today at Baldwin. We have Sven Ravishal, the 110 high hurdles, and Caleb Matthews in javelin. Marcella Sasula, the 110 hurdles, Casey Thielen, pole vault, and she is the defending 2016 gold medal champion. Aaliyah Howe, the 100 meters, Lexi Kosteling, 1600 meters, and Grace Chambers in the 440 meters. So we anticipate to hear how they did later this evening. And freshman baseball, congratulations to them being section champs with a record of 12 wins and 0 losses. Congratulations to our freshman baseball team. Next on my agenda is the Golden Mustang Award. And the Laurel Highlands School District is a proud educational institution built on strong beliefs and traditions. In an effort to recognize the contributions of many staff members that support these beliefs and traditions, we have instituted the Golden Mustang Award. This program is aimed at raising community and school awareness of staff members that exemplify our goals and missions. The idea is to give praise to our staff that go above and beyond, going out of their way to help others in making our district a great place to work. The staff members who are nominated have already received a certificate of resignation as well as a Golden Mustang pin. Of the 379 staff members in the district, the following 50 employees were recognized this school year. If you are present this evening, please stand and be recognized and remain standing until the last staff member is called. Please hold your applause until the last staff member's name is called by building. Are there any Golden Mustang Award winners from the staff here this evening? If there are, please stand. Yep, we have them back there. All right, very good. Please raise your hand so everyone can see who you are. Great work. I'm going to go through, and please remain standing. I have a list of names, and I want to make sure that everybody is recognized. Debbie Campbell, second grade teacher, Clark Elementary. Melissa Rice, Title I teacher, Clark Elementary. Justin Ward, fifth grade teacher at Clark Elementary. Megan Watts, fifth grade teacher at Clark Elementary. Christina Dragone Evans, the secretary at Clark Elementary. Bob Walters, fifth grade teacher at Clark. Tara Landman, nurse at Clark. Teddy Medioski, fourth grade teacher at Clark. Marilyn Rathway, our nurse at Clark. Aaron Tatlinger, kindergarten teacher at Marshall Elementary School. Lisa Renzi, fourth grade teacher at Marshall. Jody Plevin, second grade teacher at Marshall. Ryan Martin, first grade teacher at Marshall. Amber Bell, paraprofessional at Marshall Elementary School. Suzanne Grabizza, teacher at Marshall Elementary School. Michelle Zahala, Title I at Marshall Elementary School. Lori Ferguson, grade 1 teacher at Hatfield. Tony Leononi, second grade teacher at Hatfield. Jill John, fourth grade teacher at Hatfield. Heather Smith, fifth grade teacher at Hatfield. Megan Ratcliffe, fifth grade teacher at Hatfield. Colleen Mara, reading specialist at Hatfield. Debbie Cunningham, secretary at Hutchinson Elementary School. Vicki Hogan, kindergarten teacher at Hutchinson. Christy Hopkins, second grade teacher at Hutchinson. Brooke Morrow, grade 1 teacher at Hutchinson. Lenny Neal, technology, Hutchinson Elementary. Christy Tadero, Title I at Hutchinson. Lisa Bannock, grade 1 teacher at Hutchinson. Bryce Uris, technology at Hutchinson. Kara Hickson, teacher at the middle school. Amber Hughes, teacher at our middle school. Jennifer Kateski, teacher at our middle school. Doreen Kukin, nurse at our middle school. Maria Mangis, middle school teacher. Joanne Markle, teacher at the middle school. Jennifer Neal, middle school teacher. Michelle Struhar, middle school teacher. Julie Tupta, middle school teacher. Susan Wilson, middle school teacher. Carla Vernon, middle school teacher. Shelby Nuno, substitute teacher at Laurel Highlands Senior High School. Joe Pergar, teacher at the high school. John Sharp, teacher at the high school. Earl Wingrove, teacher at our high school. Brenda Zelich, teacher at our high school. Mark Santor, teacher at our high school. Serena Livingston, one of our secretaries at our high school. Charles Smitley, teacher at our high school. And Rich Barron, our chief of police, attendance and transportation, administration, central office employees. Congratulations to all of you. Believe me, we really appreciate what you do. The students appreciate what you do. We are lucky to have you. Great work. Mr. Sepik, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Wallace?
One more. I'm sorry. I would like to acknowledge our junior ROTC Mustang Squadron. They have been awarded the Distinguished Unit Award for academic year 2016-17. I just received this yesterday. The cadets have done a fantastic job, and this year marks the 4th time the cadets have been awarded this distinction by headquarters of the Air Force Junior ROTC. Congratulations to those students and Colonel Jones and Master Sergeant Cervone. Nice work.
Strategic plan, we have no report, but I'd like to move forward to the board policy committee. Before I make a motion, I'm going to request that Mr. Barron give us an update on this new attendance policy and how it transpired to the second reading be adopted tonight.
Okay, I'm not aware of what the board, what we finally said the days will be.
Can you give us some background on?
The board, the state has changed the attendance policy for education and throughout the state. The penalties have become stricter. The fines have become stricter. Laurel Highlands currently has 16 unexcused absences before parental excuse. With a parental excuse. What we're doing now is trying to customize so all the schools in the Fayette County area are on the same level. We're going down to, and I don't know what the 14 days. We're going to lose 2 days. For parental excuses, we'll have 14 days. This factor that we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of tighten up attendance. And where we have a little more leeway here, the parents will be sending their children to school, and we'll be able to have a little better handle on it. 16 days was a little much. Just for an example, from the first day of school till yesterday, we had almost 19,000 excused absences in the district. 19,000 for 3,000 kids. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to shrink that down a little bit. And we want the kids to come to school. We want students in the building. That's the only way this works. Students need to be in the building. And that's what we're hoping to do by doing this. We're going to put other steps in. We're going to have some meetings with parents. We're going to have meetings with students that, are falling behind because of tardiness, because of absenteeism. These are our goals. We're going to try to work towards a better Laurel Highlands by having our students here every day.
And we're also going to take a more proactive approach, not only with this policy, but collaborating with local agencies such as Justice Works, CYS, Connect to the Classrooms. There is a brand new Character Ed program coming in, and Dr. Wallace is actually coordinating with Pennsylvania State Police. Hopefully they will come in, work with the students on responsibility, the importance of coming to school. We are here to teach you. You have to learn, but you have to be present to learn. So our goal in looking at this policy was to create a goal and to increase it from 16 days to 14 days, a small goal. So at this time, actually, I'd like to make a motion to approve the second reading of the adoption of the attendance policy, which is Exhibit B.
Mrs. Andrea, I'd like to say something. I want the parents to be aware of what this policy says so that you understand. The way our current policy states is a parent has 16 days to be able to write an excuse for their student if they are not in school. After the 16th day, for each and every additional absence, you must have a physician excuse. What this would mean is that after 14 days, after every subsequent excused absence must be with a physician excuse. So that means that you as the parent must take time from work to take your child to the doctor, to MedExpress, to get a physician excuse for each and every additional absence. Now, it is like that with the 16 days also. After 16 days, after each absence, you must have a physician excuse. My concern with this is, has anyone tried to get into a physician office to get an appointment within 1 or 2 days after you call? UPMC, which is our biggest medical insurance provider in this area, is talking about no longer being accepted at MedExpress. So I understand the importance of attendance in school. It is vital for students to be here in order to learn. However, my concern is that parents will send students to school sick, which only contributes to the contagious illnesses that seem to be getting spread around. So yes, I know it's only a decrease of 2 days, but for students who are habitually absent, I feel that this policy is not going to increase their attendance in school. We need to take a very proactive approach. Our administrators and other agencies need to get involved to see why these students are not in school. For the parent who really has a sick child and who understands that when your child is sick, they are not going to learn, all that is going to do is contribute to more absences because they'll spread whatever illness they have to other people. I feel that this policy is not going to help those students. It's only going to hurt the parent who has to take time off of work to take their child to the doctor. So I'm not supporting this policy, and that is my reason behind it.
Do we have a second on the motion? We have a second. Question on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
No, excuse me, we have to do roll call on that. Sorry, Ken.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Sports?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
No.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Steffen?
I'm going to vote no.
6 yeas, 2 no.
It passes 6-2. And I want to make a comment. Right now, according to Mr. Barron, our attendance is absenteeism is about 11%, 89%.
Correct. That's district-wide.
At one time, when I was a principal, the benchmark was 93%. So 4% of our children are not coming to school for various reasons. So I think parents have to step it up, get their children to school, and avoid taking to the doctor unless they really have to. So that's just my position on it. Go ahead, Mrs.
That concludes my report, Mr. Steffen.
Curriculum Committee, Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Civic. Good evening, everyone. Under C1A, permission to approve the out-of-attendance area update, which states that effective with the 2017-18 school year, all kindergarten through grade 5 out-of-attendance area requests will be denied. This continues a procedure implemented 6 years ago. I'd like to put that in form of a motion.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Sports?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mr. Steffen?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Under C2, this is informational. The district received a $5,000 grant from the Workforce Investment Board, WIB, of Westmoreland and Fayette counties to run a middle school enrichment camp through our work with the Business Education Partnership. The camp is for middle school students and will focus on careers and manufacturing. It will run July 17th to July 20th. And that's informational. Under C3A, permission to post for 2 teachers to run a summer enrichment camp for middle school students July 17th to the 20th, with all costs to be paid by the Workforce Investment Board grant. I'd like to put that in form of a motion.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Sports?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Mr. Steffen?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Last item under C4, approval for Mr. Chris Mikulowski to attend the Advanced Placement AP Physics Training in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, July 17th to the 21st, 2017. The approximate cost is $1,200, and this is mandatory to teach the course. I'd like to put that in form of a motion at this time.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Sports?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mr. Steffen?
Yes. Motion
8
carries.
yeas.
Thank you, Mr. Seffick. That concludes my report.
Buildings, grounds, Mrs. Sports.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Sports. Finance, Budget, Taxation Committee, Mr. Price.
Mr. President, if it'd be all right to do the Academic Foundation
Oh, I'm
report
sorry.
at this point in time,
Yeah, go
only because it does have a little impact on our budget concerns. And so the Academic Foundation met on May 5th, and speaking of Mrs. Radcliffe, she was awarded a mini grant to the tune of $445.25. The mini grant was to purchase the 24 game. The 24 game is the foundation of the First in Math website. 24 game is an innovative math tool that is teaching a new generation of students to become critical thinkers and problem solvers. The game starts with developmental boxes of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And for those parents and grandparents that are frustrated with tutoring our loved ones, this game will help reinforce those skills. Now, in addition to it, it's a hands-on tool. The students in the Laurel Highlands School District will have the opportunity to participate in a 24 challenge tournament at the Intermediate Unit 1. This box game will build the foundation for our students to compete. In turn, the winners of the local competition will be sent to Harrisburg to compete at the state level. Laurel Highlands Life Achievement Hall of Fame recognition ceremonies are taking place on Friday, September 8th and Saturday, September 9th, 2017. This year's inductees are Dr. William Velosky, class of 83, Deborah Kendall Bread, class of 73, Dr. Holly Pilchuk, class of 93, Daniel Gus Gerard, class of 71, Richard Pushkar, class of 83, and Harold Borsch Taylor, class of 1936, North Union. The nominations for the class of 2018, going further ahead, are being taken at this time. Check the website, www.lhsd.org, under alumni for the nomination form. The next Academic Foundation meeting will be held on June 7th at the high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Moving on to finance, budget, and taxation, item F1A. I move that the treasurer and budget report found in Exhibit C.
Second.
Second.
Question on the motion? Kim, roll call.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Glad.
Yes.
Mr. Lamon.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal. Mrs. Santor.
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea.
Yes.
Mr. Stefan.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Okay, thank you. Item F2A is an action item. I move the payment of bills found in Exhibit D.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Glad.
Yes.
Mrs. Santor.
Yes.
Mr. Lamon.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal.
Yes.
Mr. Stefan.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Item F3 is informational. It's an investment report found in your Exhibit E. Item F4, the board summary report, is also informational, found in your Exhibit F. Item F5, I move that the federal report be accepted, found in Exhibit G.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Glad.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz.
Yes.
Mrs. Santor.
Yes.
Mr. Lamon.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal.
Yes.
Mr. Stefan.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Item F6, I move the student activity funds and athletic funds report found in Exhibit H.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Glad.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal.
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea.
Yes.
Mr. Lamon.
Yes.
Mrs. Santor.
Yes.
Mr. Stefan.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Item F7, I move the approval of the tentative budget and setting the date for adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 found in Exhibit I. The sum of that budget is $51,987,85.
Second.
And that the date will be in later in June.
Yeah. I think we set it for the 22nd, but we have till the 30th to pass the...
22nd of June.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
Question on the motion? Kim?
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Glad.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea.
Yes.
Mr. Lamon.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal.
Yes.
Mrs. Santor.
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz.
Yes.
Mr. Stefan.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Item F8, I move the approval of payment to the Fayette County Career and Technical Institute in the amount of $1,049,888 for the current 2016-2017 school year.
Second.
Question on the motion? Kim, roll call.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Glad.
Yes.
Mrs. Santor.
Yes.
Mr. Lamon.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal.
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz.
Yes.
Mr. Stefan.
Motion passes.
Item F9, I move the election of Jamie Miller DeAndrea as board treasurer for a one-year term beginning July 1, 2017.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal. Yes. Mr. Lamon.
Yes.
Mrs. Glad.
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mrs. Santor.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea.
Abstain.
Mr. Stevic.
Yes.
Mr. President, that concludes our
Thank you,
action.
Mr. Price. Food Service Committee, Mrs. Boards.
I'd like to make a motion, I've read my report, to approve it.
Big part, I can't hear you.
FS1A, Cafeteria Report, Exhibit J. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Who seconded that? Mrs. Schwartz? Yes. Mrs. Beal? Yes. Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Stevic?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Security and Transportation Committee, Mrs.
Mr. Barron, on the security, you want to talk about the transportation?
Other than we will be updating our bus routes starting the first part of June. We don't look for any real changes, but we will change some of our parochial runs. Thank you.
That concludes your report, Mrs. Thank you very much. Human Resources Committee, Mrs. Glad.
P1A, I'd like to put in the form of a motion to approve the additional substitute teachers in Exhibit K.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Yes. Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mr. Stevic?
Yes.
8 yeas.
P2A, request for retirements, other leaves, and resignations. We accept with regret the retirement of Ms. Kathleen Iacone, mathematics teacher at the high school, effective the last day of the 2016-2017 school year. Ms. Iacone has 34-plus years of dedicated service to the school district. I'd like to...
And before you make that motion, I tried my hardest to get Mrs. Iacone to reconsider. She's a great teacher, as all of our teachers are. She was here when I started. I worked with Mrs. Iacone. She's a true professional. And I think, as we do with all teachers, we need to give her a round for her applause.
I'd like to put that into the form of a motion, please. Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Yes. Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
With great regret, I say yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
With regret again.
And Mr. Stevic?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Accept with regret the retirement of Mr. Richard Terrell, physics teacher at the high school, effective the last day of the 2016-2017 school year. Mr. Terrell has 18-plus years of dedicated service to the school district.
Once again, that's another individual I started with when I first came to the district. And we'd like to congratulate Mr. Terrell into his retirement also.
Is there a second on that? Second? We need a second on it.
She seconded. Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mr. Stevic?
Yes.
8 yeas.
I'd like to put into the form of a motion to accept with regret the retirement of Mrs. Susan Wilson, art teacher at the middle school, effective the last day of the 2016-2017 school year. Mrs. Wilson has 23-plus years of dedicated service to the school district.
Once again, don't you get upset. We hate to see you go. Please stand and be recognized. You're right up there. Congratulations.
Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to say one thing about Mrs. Wilson. I had the wonderful privilege of working with her and all the wonderful teachers in South Laurel, but she's one of the best teachers I've ever had the privilege of working with. Kind, compassionate, the art teachers in middle school, and Mrs. Wilson, we're really going to miss you, and I greatly enjoyed working with you. Congratulations.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Mrs. DeAndrea?
One that truly goes above and beyond with regret, yes.
Mrs. Bortz?
Yes, she's got me crying.
Mr. Sevett?
Yes, with regrets. I happened to be the principal at the time when we hired Mrs. Wilson, and she's been an outstanding teacher and art teacher. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson.
I'd like to put into the form of a motion the request by professional employee A for sabbatical leave for professional development purposes for the first semester of the 2017-2018 school year.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Sevett?
Yes.
8 yeas.
I'd like to put this into the form of a motion, the request by professional employee B for sabbatical leave for restoration of health for the 2017-2018 school year.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Mr. Sevett?
Yes.
8 yeas.
P3A, we have no conference requests at this time. P4A, I'd like to put this into the form of a motion to approve additional substitute employees for support personnel found in Exhibit L.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Sevett?
Yes.
8 yeas.
P5A, I'd like to put this into the form of a motion to accept with regret the retirement of Mrs. Mary Kay Zebley, high school secretary, effective June 30th, 2017. Mrs. Zebley has 20-plus years of dedicated service to the district.
We'd also like to thank Ms. Ebley for her service and all that she's done, from being a IEP aide up to being one of our greeters and secretaries at the high school. Good work. Congratulations into your retirement also, Ms. Ebley.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call, please.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Bortz?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mr. Sevett?
Yes.
8 yeas.
P6A, I'd like to put this into the form of a motion, the selection of maintenance employee for terms of the collective bargaining agreement effective immediately, and this individual's name is Mr. Jerome Felicki.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Yes, I actually do have a question. Of the certifications, I was extremely impressed when I heard what he can actually do. So, Dr. Wells, can you elaborate what actually he can bring?
I sure can. We started out our field with 14 individuals. I took a written test, and out of those 14 individuals, the field was narrowed to 4 individuals who we felt met the skill set that we needed, with a predominantly high capacity to work within the HVAC systems that we have, the plumbing and carpentry systems that we have within the district. We then, in conjunction with our CTI school, had them come up with an actual hands-on test that was about a 6-hour test, and all the candidates that are those 4 candidates that moved from the written test to that test took that individual test at the CTI on a Saturday afternoon, and the scores of that test varied. However, within that group of 4, Mr. Felicki's score was 200 points above the competitors, and I feel that that elevated him as far as his skill set to advance the district. And then during the interview process, all candidates were, I feel, fairly equal in their presentation and their ability to fit into the culture of our district. However, Mr. Felicki did pull ahead there also, and I feel like we are getting a great employee who's going to benefit the district tremendously.
Easy certified to do HVAC, air conditioning, refrigeration?
Yes, he's certified in multiple categories with service corporations and companies that have the equipment that we have. He's, through the years, acquired certificates of professionalism within his field, that he'll bring all that with him when he comes to Laurel Highlands.
And I looked at it, and actually at sharing and collaborating with Mrs. Glad, it's a time when money is challenging, it's difficult, and I really support a hiring freeze, but at this time, with his abilities, I believe it would be a cost savings of what he can actually bring to the district.
There's no doubt. Thank you for asking.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Mr. Suffolk?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Congratulations.
P7A, I'd like to put this into the form of a motion to approve Mrs. Julie Hildock as a successful bidder for the 12th month, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. shift at the Laurel Highlands Middle School per terms of the collective bargaining agreement. This requires board action as it is considered a promotion. The effective date of this will be Monday, May 22nd, 2017.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Mrs. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Well, sir, yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mr. Suffolk?
Yes.
8 yeas.
P8, this is informational only. The selection of Debbie Butler as 5.5-hour cafeteria helper for the middle school cafeteria per terms of the collective bargaining agreement effective immediately. P9A, I'd like to put into the form of a motion the selection of a 5.5-hour cafeteria helper for the high school per terms of the collective bargaining agreement. This is effective immediately, and this individual is Ms. Lynette Hillen.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Mrs. Wertz?
Mrs. Woods.
That last one.
Big pardon?
The previous one, that's my mistake. He's taking board action.
Well, yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
We'll do that last one.
Roll call.
I'm on Mrs. Wertz.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Mr. Suffolk?
Yes.
8 yeas.
I should go back.
Mrs. Glad, PA?
Yes. P8 should be an action, so I would like to put into the form of a motion the selection of Debbie Butler as the 5.5-hour cafeteria helper for the middle school cafeteria per terms of the collective bargaining agreement effective immediately.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call, please.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Suffolk?
Yes.
8 yeas.
P10A, I'd like to put into the form of a motion to update on paraprofessional placements. This will be found in Exhibit M.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Question on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Landon?
Thank you, Mr. Sheffield. Under athletic and extracurricular activities, under A and E4, permission to approve ambulance coverage for home football games. That's in Exhibit P. I'd like to put that in form of a motion at this time.
Second.
Question on the motion, roll call.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Mrs. DeAndrea? Mrs. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mr. Suffolk?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Under A and E5, permission to approve school physicians and dentists for the 2017-18 school year as follows. That'd be under Exhibit Q. physicians from Centerville clinics to complete student physicals, 2 football game physician, and 3 school dentists. I'd like to put that in the form of a motion at this time.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Yes. Mr. Suffolk?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Legal advisors, Mr. Frankhauser?
There is nothing at the board level currently, thank you. No, not at the board level, no. I can do L3A. Under L3A, we can consider the abolishment and addition of programs. This is a action item that is precautionary, but it is something that is done every year, consistent with the recommendations of the Budget Committee and what happens with the final budget, and pursuant to the Pennsylvania School Code, the positions that will be considered and be presented to the board as deletions or additions will be based upon the necessary curtailments and changes in enrollment patterns in the school district. This is not to say that this will in fact occur, but this does allow the process to proceed in the event that it becomes necessary. This would also allow the administration and the superintendent to realign the staff and the appropriate notifications given in the event of any suspensions or furloughs. And that would be the motion necessary this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Question on the motion? Kim, roll call.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad? Yes. Mr. Lamon?
No.
Mrs. Santor?
No.
Mrs. Beal? Yes. Mrs. Wertz? Yes. Mr. Suffolk?
No. 5-3 motion carries. I'll clarify my vote. I've never voted for this. Not that it's just my position. I don't feel comfortable with possible furloughs and abolishment of positions. So that's just my personal opinion. I don't want to influence anybody else's vote, but that's just my personal view on it. Under general matters, Career and Technical Institute report, Mr. Price.
Thank you. Bay County Career and Technical Institute Board met on April 24, 2017. Significant action item was the adoption of a tentative budget of $6,967,584 for the next school year. The budget represents an increase of about 3.38%. The primary increase includes funds to support the retirement system, wage increases, and health care coverage. The final budget will be adopted in June. Of note, 148 students took the NOCTA exam, which is a competency test of skills for a specific area of study in which the students are enrolled. 130 of those students scored in the competent or advanced categories. And that it's significant because 10 of the 15 specific programs, 100% of the students scored in that range. 600 students participated in the annual career fair on April 12th. 35 employers from the area set up exhibits for the students, and the students rotated through those exhibits basically to give them a great idea about the jobs that are available and the types of employment that one might find in the area. 3 summer camps will be held this summer. The Career Exploration Camp will be held on June 7th, 8th, and 9th for students entering 6th and 7th grades. An Advanced Manufacturing and Healthcare Camp will be held June 12th through June 16th for students entering the 8th and 9th grades. The camps are funded through the Federal Perkins Funds, the Benedict Foundation, and WIB. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Intermediate unit report.
Intermediate Unit 1. The Intermediate Unit 1 Board of Directors met on April 27, 2017. The intermediate unit was informed by the Pennsylvania Bureau of Special Education of the results of the physical review. The IU is exercising due diligence in the Bureau of Special Education on the behalf of the Bureau of Special Education for proper administration, oversight, and management of local, regional, IDEA-B school age funding allocations. That deals basically with special education funding and the support to special needs students. And then pending a budget review and staffing needs, the IU may have to furlough employees. Details will be considered next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. G3, other business comment. We have an adult spokesman for that group of individuals back there. Mrs. Wilson, do you have
I do. I'm going to go over here because I don't want to have my name is Susan Wilson, and I've been the visual arts teacher at the middle school for the past 23 years. I would like to thank the school board, administrators, teachers, parents, and students for the opportunity to be a part of the Laurel Highlands community and educational system. Through my years of teaching at Laurel Highlands and an additional 10 years in public and private education, I feel that I've attained a valuable knowledge and insight into the benefits of art education and the educational process, and would like to share a small part of that with you. I have learned that art is more than an activity period. I've learned that art is more than providing a prep period for teachers. A few years ago, through a grant provided by the Mattress Factory Art Museum, I partnered with Mrs. Diane Williams, the math teacher. The objective of this pairing was to prove or disprove the validity of art in improving a major subject. Targeting a below basic math class, both in PSSA and their average grades, we found our prime class. Our goal was to see what knowledge, if any, that the students had, present the math lesson and then the art lesson, and ascertain whether or not there was an improvement with the additional art lesson. Presenting the basic math skill in geometrical shapes and linear concepts, they were pre-tested for their knowledge in the area, and all students failed the test. Mrs. Williams presented her math lesson for this math concept, and the students were then tested, and the average was 69%. I then presented an art lesson using the mathematical concepts, and the students took the knowledge to the visual and hands-on level. Students were given two-dimensional figures to construct proportionately larger into three-dimensional pyramids, cubes, rectangular prisms, with only the measurement on one side of their original formula. They did all the calculating. Math calculations included measurement, radius, diameter, circumference, scale factor, ratios, proportions, cross products, and corresponding sides were required for completion of the construction. After the completion of the sculptural projects, students were post-tested and scored on the average of 90%. This is the end product of that, and it shows you their final product along with a little bit of additional information on the back, so it's a DVD. I reflect on our middle school math teacher, Mrs. Kopak, when presenting her two-dimensional lesson, inquired as to whether any students knew the formula for the second dimension. And when a student responded with the correct answer, she asked where they had learned that formula, and the student responded in art class. In a similar incident, Mrs. Johnson, the science teacher, was introducing a volume lesson to the students and asked if anyone knew the formula. Again, when the student responded with the correct answer, and when he learned the formula, he responded in art class. Howard Gardner, intelligence researcher, states that developing intelligence of interpersonal, spatial, visual, all developed when creating visual art. It's difficult to develop the skill to be a surgeon if you haven't had the experience of working with visual arts and concepts. Unfortunately, experiencing the effects of Corbett's cuts in 2014 in education directly affected my effectiveness in the classroom. Although thankful that art skirted the cut half of the rotational classes in the middle school were lost. The loss of those classes doubled the class size of the rotation classes to 40 students in the classroom. Logistically and statistically, numbers work against you at this point, and effectiveness of a teacher in a classroom is drastically reduced. Presentation of objectives, passing out materials, classroom discipline and management of 40 students in a 42-minute period becomes nothing more than managing students as a number instead of encouraging their creativity and individuality. Following the setback at the middle school, creative methods for scheduling resulted in students picking electives, but excluded the 8th graders from being able to take art. On a regular basis, I have students stop by my room expressing their interest in being able to take art. I am the art department at the middle school. And I am concerned that my students will continue, that they have the opportunity to pursue their artistic interests. Should on my retirement my position not be filled, the students at Laurel Highlands Middle School will have no art. I repeat, no art, and suffer for that. With today's many challenges faced by students, teachers, and you with the financial burden, please just keep in mind what is best for our students and their success. Thank you.
At this time, we have to go back to the addendum for the other business. There's 2 items there.
Yes, I would like the board to consider a motion to approve Ms. Debbie Savage as the successful bidder for the 10.5-month, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. shift at Hutchinson Elementary School per terms of the collective bargaining agreement. This requires board action as it is considered a promotion. Effective date will be Tuesday, May 23rd of 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call, Kim.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal? Mrs. Bortz?
Yes.
Mr. Stuffy?
Yes.
8 yeas.
I'd like the board to consider a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Joe Pergar, head varsity softball coach, effective immediately, and permission to post the position.
Make a motion.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bortz?
Yes.
Mrs. DeAndrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Glad?
Yes.
Mr. Lamon?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Santor?
Yes.
Mr. Stuffy?
Yes.
8 yeas.
Now, any more public comment?
Wondering
Come
why
up,
this
ma'am.
wasn't addressed in 17 AE.
Beg pardon? I can't hear you. Could you step up?
17 AE 1, 2, and 3 wasn't addressed.
Those were removed from the agenda.
May I ask why?
Yes, we discussed those at the meeting last night, and we decided to put those on hold until after the budget is passed. Being in the situation we are in now with the budget, we have to pass by June 22nd, so we decided to put those on hold until after the June 22nd meeting.
It's June 22nd.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our regular meeting is the 15th, but we're going to have a special meeting to approve the budget on the 22nd. But we have until June 30th if we really need to even go to that period of time. But it's crunch time, and we're looking at all the spending and looking at a fine-tooth comb so we don't overspend it. I don't think any of those things are in jeopardy, but we just need to take a good look at it. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Stan, what is your name?
Susan Bannock. I'm a resident of South Union Township, and I have a daughter here at Hutchinson. On April 18th, I attended your work session to request that the board censure Jamie Miller DeAndrea for recklessly insinuating in a letter to the editor that 2 Laurel Highlands students had enrolled in an AP course to dishonestly manipulate their class rank. I was informed that there is no procedure currently in place for censuring a board member. And in fact, there is no code of conduct or ethics to which board members must adhere. The teachers at Laurel Highlands have a code of conduct that they must strictly abide by. They can be reprimanded and suspended for the slightest infraction. The students have a code of conduct as well. Their student handbook outlines in great detail 4 levels of offenses and the punishment for each transgression. It has been my experience that most occupations have official codes of conduct as well. I feel strongly that the Laurel Highlands School Board should have a code regarding conduct and ethics, and that there should be consequences for violations. The rules outlined in the code should prevent board members from publicly slandering or libeling students, teachers, and administrators. It should also address nepotism, which is perceived by the Laurel Highlands stakeholders as a major problem in this district. Board members should be required to recuse themselves from votes in matters which would directly benefit themselves or a close family member. The code should also prevent board members from accessing students' private information, including their schedules, GPAs, and class rank. Finally, it should forbid the creation of policies used to advance personal agenda, as well as measures targeted at individual students rather than the student body as a whole. This is not a radical idea. Many school districts have implemented codes of conduct for their board members. I urge you to do the same for Laurel Highlands, as I believe that all publicly elected officials should be held accountable for their actions, and no governing body should be left unchecked. Thank you.
I want to address one thing about the nepotism policy. We do have a nepotism policy. Any board member are not involved in the interviews. They cannot vote on an issue. So I just want to make sure that we do have a nepotism policy.
Very good.
And additionally, most, if not all, of the items that you mentioned are governed by the school code, and also other civil and criminal laws that are applicable in the state of Pennsylvania. So the statements and the concerns that you have are addressed in the school code, and the board always applies the school code when dealing with those types of issues. Considering a policy is not unprecedented, as you said, but to direct and answer specifically to some of the things that you said, they are governed by the school code.
Where can I see the school code?
I can give you that whenever you want it. It's about that thick.
It's that thick. I got a copy of it.
It's in the Pennsylvania code. It's in the pertinent statutes. It can be looked up on Google, and there are numerous references, specific references to the issues that you brought up.
But there's no procedure to censure someone for
There is
violation of
not.
that code.
There is not.
A couple
So
of the
what's
web
the
pages
point
of
of having a code if you don't have to be held?
The Pennsylvania Department of Education webpage would have information, and also the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, PSBA, would also have information that you can access. They are the two, well, of course, the Pennsylvania Department of Education, they actually govern all school districts in the Commonwealth. And PSBA is a organization that represents pretty much every school district within the Commonwealth also. And they have information on exactly what you're alluding to there that you can read, print, and educate yourself on the operations of not just our school board, but any school board within the state.
I just would like to confirm that we do have a school code and a code of ethics, and at no time I nor any board member are given information of any student, their grade, their rank, anything. The only thing we have access to is our own personal students. Information was accessed last year. We were asked to hire teachers. At that time, the board, in an agreement, asked for all the teachers and the class sizes so that we can address if a hiring need was necessary. At that time, we were given the information of how many students were in each class. I do not have direct knowledge of any child's information besides my own child. If one person advocates for nepotism, it is surely me.
Anybody else?
You can understand my frustration that there is no procedure to censure someone.
Well, as I had indicated before, the most ultimate procedure is the ballot box.
But that could be years between the infraction and...
Or if there is any kind of civil or criminal activity, a board member can be removed, sure.
Mr. Gang,
I've made my statement, I'm happy.
I'm just saying, I as a board member, I cannot even look into the file of a teacher or a student. So I'm not permitted by the school code. And I do have a code of conduct that I do my homework every night between midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Frankhauser will attest to that because I do question him a lot on some legal issues. But we do try to stay within the realm of the school code. And, I really apologize if you have a misconception of what the board's role is, but we do this job without any compensation. We have hours and hours and hours of time that we spend. Last Wednesday, for example, from 12 o'clock until 8 o'clock that night, there was 5 different events that we could have gone to that naturally you can't go to all. So I just want to let you know that we do this on our own time, and I've been in this district a long, long time. And I appreciate everybody's concern, but we are a vehicle of the public. And if you have something to say, you say it to a board member, and we get it to the proper individuals, either Mr. Frankhauser or Dr. Wallace. And that's our procedure.
And I would like to also add that I, as well as everyone sitting in this room, has freedom of speech or First Amendment rights. You are welcome to say anything that is the truth. You can publish anything that is the truth and can be received with the open records request. All the information printed was from my opinion, which I do have freedom of speech to print. Accusing me of anything, there is a time and a place for it, and it is the court of the law, and it is considered slander.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak on an issue? Please stand. Excuse me. Go ahead. Yeah, John.
I'm Jerome Kalicki. I'd just like to thank the board for your support.
Well deserved, Mr. Good.
Thank you.
My name is Laura Becker, and my son is a 9th grade student here at LH. Ladies and gentlemen of the school board and Mr. Wallace, thank you for offering me a few minutes to provide input regarding the baseball program. What we are all here for this evening is to continue the success of the baseball program here at Laurel Highlands and to continue its success by allowing the current leadership and coaching staff to remain in place. The young men in 9th through 11th grade has asked us to come here in front of you today to request that Coach DeBerry and his staff will be allowed to continue to teach and mentor them. They are fearful that the change will have a negative impact on baseball program here. As we know, the decisions we make daily have impact in both short and long term. The players do not completely understand why there are so many different stories swirling around, but know the vast majority of the players and parents want Coach DeBerry and his coach and staff to stay. We all ask that the board members to renew Coach DeBerry's contract for the next 4 years to keep continuity to the baseball program. So we will illustrate to our boys that their voice and opinions along with their future baseball careers do matter. Coach DeBerry is the right coach for our boys. Not only for the high school, he will prepare them for baseball beyond high school, for those who want to go on. Thank you for the consideration.
Public comment. Yes, ma'am. State your name, please.
I'm sorry?
State your name, please.
Oh, yes. My name is Diane Gaskin. I am a mother of a current Laurel Highlands baseball player and a younger son that's hopefully an upcoming baseball son, and I appreciate the board allowing me to address Mr. Wallace. The same concern that we do support Mr. Coach Scott DeBerry, and we would like him to stay as our head coach. These players have grown to respect and look up to Coach DeBerry, and it would be a great disappointment if his contract wasn't renewed. But in turn, I wanted to go over a few things that he's been the coach for the past 5 years, and wanted to explain a little bit of what hard work these boys do, as well as Coach DeBerry and the time and dedication that he gives back to them. Fall ball starts at the end of August and ends at the beginning of November. Weightlifting starts mid-November, 3 days a week. Lifting continues over Christmas break. Practices start 5 days a week in January. And in February, the varsity team hosts a fundamentals clinic for the elementary and middle school students, which he has raised over $5,000 in an effort to support the needs of the baseball program. Mr. DeBerry has also been seen maintaining the fields on Sundays to maintain a safe and a well-maintained field. In the fall, he maintains the fields and cleans the dugouts after games. He has rebuilt the pitching mound, built the bullpen mound. He has built the batting cage with his own net and donated materials. He has resurfaced the infield. In the last 3 years, he's put 3 tons of field conditioner on the field with his own time. None of the 3 tons, which was purchased by the district. He repurposed a roller donated to him with his own money so he could roll the infield to prevent injuries and bad hops and uneven playing field for the players. He has built a spike drag with materials that he's purchased. He has taken personal days to put together the rollaway batting cage and to prepare other practice areas to prepare for the season. So he's done a lot of great things for these boys, and as I said, I think they all look up to him and respect him, and at the end of the day, the person that coaches them, think about the players and not the adults, because like I said, they really want Coach DeBerry to stay. So it's for the players and the kids, and that's what we're here for. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do we have any more public comment? We'll take a motion to adjourn.
Back here.
Oh, excuse me.
My name is Laurel Highlands. I'm a little sister that goes to middle school. My biggest concern would be art, honestly.
Big Marty?
Art class that is getting taken away. Like, she expresses herself with art, and she came home crying about it.
That's not even being considered. I don't know where that.
I know it's not considered, but that's like a really big thing. Like, I find art just as big as baseball.
Okay, thank you very much.
I see that you just don't care. You don't understand kids with anxiety, depression, so on and so forth, express themselves with art. And that's what she goes to. And she went to middle school. She came home crying about that. And like her crying about it, saying that it's no more. Like, why is art? Like, that's how she expresses herself. She has problems. And you're like smiling, like it's funny.
No, we don't know where this is
We
coming
haven't
from.
even just.
We have no
Art, we haven't
idea.
even
I heard her
discussed.
say art.
Yeah, but we don't know where she came off with that. Well, nobody's getting rid of
No
art.
one's even
Where did it
considered.
come from?
That-
She came home and told me art was getting canceled.
Well, see, that's a rumor.
That's
Okay,
it.
so it's not being done, because that's
I
her
don't know
biggest
where this is
concern. She came
coming
home
from.
crying. And her saying no more art. I know, like,
As the budget evolves, we will decide where a lot of classes will go, but nothing right now has been cut or done away with, not one area.
Okay, well, before the last came out, like, a lot of kids like her, anxiety, depression, they look up a lot to art, and I heard her saying there's going to be no more art in middle school, and that had my blood boil. And I find it like the biggest concern like baseball that they do.
Understood. You take that seriously also.
There's a good example now. I want the general public to understand. As board members, we hear all those kinds of things. We hear rumors too. So we have to put everything in perspective. But there is absolutely, I was responsible for Mrs. Wilson being hired 23 years ago. So I understand the impact of art, music, and those things on the educational background of any student. So please, that's not even being considered. So at this point in time, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Second. there's a lot of rumors going around, people using Facebook, running the board down. You know, it's disgusting, because I spend lots of hours meetings. I care about these kids. That's the only reason I'm here. I wasn't here for any other reason. None of my family works here. You know, it hurts that we all have a role here. The time, last week, I must have been in, 12 hours. Being at meetings, being at everything the kids, I go to everything these kids have. Basketball, football, soccer, everything that they have, I go to. And it really hurts when we gotta sit up here and take crap. Excuse me,
I just want to explain one other thing too. I've been in this school district since 1963. So you can figure the age, how old I am. But anyway, I've done every job in this school. Coached, started the wrestling program, been involved. The only position I've never held in this district is the superintendent's job. And I did not accept that because it's a thankless job, simply because of the fact the hours this gentleman puts in, my wife would have never permitted me to do 80 hours a week. So I just want you to understand, we take this to heart. Everything we do up here. We listen to rumors. We listen to parents. We listen to people on the street. So all these things that you're hearing, nothing's been put into perspective about baseball, softball, basketball. We have to go through a process of interviewing, deciding what we're going to do. We have 2 positions open right now in athletics. So just want you to understand, all these things you're hearing in the public, believe about 1% of it, because the rest of it is not true. Thank you very much.
I would like to add, in 26 years of education, you will not find a stronger advocate for the children, for all kids, and meeting all needs. I'm transparent. I do play a dual role with my child being in the district, but not only do I represent my child, I look at the other 3,000 students as my children and meeting everyone's need. That's my philosophy as my character, in my education and everything. I would not speak nor write anything that I did not believe in, nor was the truth.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn.
You have a
All those in
motion.
favor? Aye.